Hello again, friends. So, yesterday I cut my hand. I got some stitches. I got a tetanus shot. It's all good. Honestly, these things happen. Tonight I will be wearing my gloves. So I don't get dirt down in there. I do have betadine to keep cleaning it out at night. But today the goal is to get the swing arm off so I can start looking at those bearings, see if I need to order them. One good thing happened today. Indian sent me a notification they already shipped the hose. So that's pretty quick. I was actually pretty surprised. It says it'll be here on Monday. Right now is Friday night. So I have a couple of days to basically figure out what else I'm going to do there before I put the radiator back in. So I'm pretty happy with that. The other night when I managed to cut my hand, I actually did get that bolt out of the swing arm, and you can see that there's just some surface rust on there. Haven't actually pulled it the rest of the way out. That's when I cut my hand. But the bolt is over here, laying on the floor. And hopefully you can see that it's got a little corrosion on it, but really not too bad. It appears all right. So here's where it comes out the other side. There's a needle bearing inside here. There's this seal, this little dust seal here. Clip ring to pull that off. So I'm planning on pulling all that out, cleaning out whatever's in there. It'll probably be gunk. And then putting in fresh grease and repacking it, and then I have new seals from Indian. And I will probably also, because I see rust down in there, clean those out as well, as long as I'm there. But first I'm going to have to pull the lower shock supports that I can actually drop the swing arm all the way out, which means I also need to remove the rear brake, because it's actually mounted, the line is mounted here on the swing arm, and I don't want that. Actually, now that I've seen that damage on some of those other hoses, I better start checking all of these hoses to see if they have any damage. This one doesn't appear to. There's the speed sensor. There's the brake line. The bike only has 2,000 miles on it. I don't know if I'm going to replace those brake lines yet or not. Barnett, the same people I bought the clutch from, they do make brake lines for both the ABS models and the non-ABS models of the Scout. So if you do need them, you can get them. They also offer +6 if you want to put mini apes on or something like that. So Barnett makes fantastic cables. So if you need some, I would highly recommend them. If you do replace them, one thing you should always remember, this banjo here, there's 2 washers. Make sure that you replace the washers at the same time. If you order them from Barnett, they come with washers. If you order them from somewhere else, they may or may not, but you always want to replace that washer. So, just a little tip. So now I'm going to take this out, move where this is hanging from up here probably, and then I can drop the swing arm. So again, from the other day, these are my prong horns from Giant Loop. They work great. Hold a ton of weight. So I already did that. I realized I didn't have the camera on. So I'm going to pull this up around here. Now they will normally tell you not to ever have the brake up above the hose because you can introduce air into it. But in my case, I'm actually not worried about it because I am going to be completely bleeding the brakes before I put all this back together. Okay, on the Scout, these rear shocks, if you ever are going to replace your rear shocks, if you disconnect both of these, the bike will actually fold down on itself. So you need to make sure you have it jacked up. In this case, obviously I have the rear tire removed. Super easy. Also, if you ever need to replace your belt, some people will tell you that you need to pull off the swing arm. It's actually not true. You can actually just disconnect the rear shock here, feed it through, and then reconnect the rear shock. So I've had to do that before. Haven't actually looked at this belt yet to see if there's any cuts or anything in it, but I'm not planning on replacing it unless I have to. With only 2,000 miles on the bike, it really shouldn't need it. See, that's how I cut my hand the other night, because I was putting my weight down on it and then I slipped and I hit something that was sharp. So I was a little more careful tonight. So you lift up on the swing arm just a little bit, take the load off. That'll make it easier to pull. Now that shock is loose. Usually I put the bolt in there. I'll put it back in there in a minute. Actually, it's got a bunch of rust in it. Now I think it's actually just going to fall out. So I am going to sit back here, pull the belt out. See what I mean? Once you get the rear shock off, you can actually get the belt out pretty easily. I'll check that over later. And pretty much as soon as I remove that one bolt, it's going to fall. So let's see if I can position myself to catch it. I should probably remove this. The belt guard. I'll remove that in a minute. Oh, and there it goes, see? There we go. One swing arm. Now, here's a bushing right here. That actually looks really good. And let me see if I can grab the camera here in a second. Okay, hopefully this will be clear, or clearer anyway. So there's this bushing, right? You pull this out. It's rusted on the outside, but the inside looks really clean. Inside there, you can see there's needle bearings here. So those actually don't feel too bad, but there's not as much grease in there as I would like. And I do see some dirt in there. This green looks like a little lip there. That's a seal. So we're going to pull that seal out. I'm not going to pull the bearing unless I feel any ratcheting. Now here's some grit in there, but I'm not feeling any ratcheting spots where it had worn into the race. So I'm not going to pull that out, but I will pull out the seal, pack it full of grease again, and then reclose it back up. There's a seal on each side, by the way. Then on the other side, it has a different. So if you notice, these two are different. Don't get them mixed up. Actually, they shouldn't fit. Yeah, it won't fit. But yeah, pay attention to which side which one comes out of, because this side does not have a needle bearing. It's actually two wheel bearings, or ball bearings. So there's a bearing on this side and then a bearing on the other side, and they're packed in between there. I'm not even sure if I'm getting that on the camera or not. So they're packed in between here. There's two of them, and that snap ring, if you're going to press them out to replace them, you have to take it out that direction. You can't pull it out this way because there's an interference fit on the other side. So I check these bearings as well. Make sure I don't feel any notches. No. They move independent. No notching. These actually still have grease in them. So that's good. So that means this side, which is the low side when the bike's on its stand, is the one that took the water in, because that's where all the sand and everything is. So I'm going to pull out those seals, repack it with grease, and then we can put it back. So in order to get this rust off of this piece right here, I'm thinking some metal polish and some sandpaper, because it's just surface rust. This thing's steel. A little surface rust won't hurt it at all. But it looks ugly to me, so.
A few moments later.
Let's see how that looks. That looks a lot better. So here are the swing arm washers, because the ones that are there are really rusted. I got 2 of those. And no, they don't come with swing arm written on them. I do that when they come in, because you order all these different part numbers and then you can't remember where the hell they go to. So whenever I get them in, I always take them immediately and I write what they were for from my order, so I'll remember. So these are the swing arm seals, and you can see that little green. It's right there. So I'm assuming these are not interference, like there's no snap ring around it. Just double check here. I don't think you have to press these out. I think they just pop out. But let's try. Yep. So just grabbed it with a pair of needle nose. This is a hard plastic ring around it, but now you can see the needle bearing, hopefully. There's a little tiny gap between the bottom where the actual needle itself sits and this housing that keeps the needle bearings from all just falling, right? So there's a little tiny gap under there, and that's where you want to pack that with grease in there, because you want this needle bearing to be able to rotate easily. Right now I can hear sand in it. So I'm gonna get both of these out. Ooh, sand. I don't like to hear sand in there. So most of what I'm hearing right now is actually just the bearing, because now that there's no grease under it or no dirt under it, it actually vibrates around a little bit, but now it's moving really, really easily. Now you're hitting the metal on metal of the little needle bearings. So that's why we have to repack them, because we want that to be protected. Now you might ask, what type of grease should you use in here? Pretty much any waterproof grease. Because again, the grease has 2 functions in there, right? One is to prevent the bearings from rubbing away the metal, so you want that protective aspect of it. And the second one is to basically repel water, to keep water from sitting in there, because if your bearings rust, they're not doing you any good. So, but this one's not rusted. Pressing these out really isn't that hard. I haven't done it on a Scout before, but I've done it on my Tiger. But I'm just glad I didn't have to buy one. They're not that expensive. I thought about doing it anyway, but since I didn't need to. This is the grease that I use because it has a corrosion block additive added to it. And I'll basically use this anywhere that I need waterproof grease and I'm worried about it corroding. So, and you literally just take it on your finger, pack it into those bearings. Just mash it in there. All that grease. You want to start seeing it come out the bottom. That's when you know you got enough grease in it. So needle bearings are easy to pack. All right, that should be that. So here's another little tip for you. This race that we had here, I took the seal and basically put it there, and now I'm going to use it to push it in. Should make it a little easier, I hope. It's actually still pretty tight. If you have a clamp, you could actually clamp that on there and squeeze it tight, because this is the exact diameter, right? You don't have to worry about damaging it. The other one, I'm just going to take it, slide it over this, put a little tiny dab of grease on this just to make it easier to go in there. Slide that back in. And I'm actually just going to take the hammer and tap it. There we go. So now I'm going to take these off. Now, I have seen these rust a lot on different bikes. So usually I would have ordered new nuts back here. These nuts actually look brand new, and they actually have a little sleeve inside them, and it doesn't look torn up. This is just dirty.
A few moments later.
Pop it back in here. Yeah, these aren't even chewed up really. Put it back. There's another little pro tip for you. Brillo Scotch-Brite pads. This will surface corrosion. These weren't great for getting off stuff. You just run them up. Get a brush that you can actually run through there. You see how that white powder just comes right out. They make lots of different kinds of brushes. Synthetic, brass. They make a lot of different kinds. So depending on how hard you need to be able to scrub, you can use a different brush. For this, I'm really not scrubbing very hard because I'm just trying to get that little bit of surface corrosion off. Okay, here's my plan, such as it is. It's basically go the opposite way I did last time. Basically get the rear shocks to hold it up, and then I can use that as a fulcrum to basically pivot it up to there. That's my plan anyway. Sticking to it until it doesn't work, and then I'll change to another plan. You have to adapt, adjust, and overcome. That's just how that works. So, do I actually have this in the right orientation? This side has the brake caliper mounting. Yes, that's where the brake caliper goes. There's nothing worse than getting something up in there and then finding out you did it backwards. Whoop, almost. Whatever you do, do not cross thread anything, right? That would be extra bad. As soon as you feel any resistance, just stop. Right? I mean, you're not lined up correctly. See, now that I got this one on, now it'll be a little easier to get that one on there. So I always do everything up hand tight first to make sure I'm not cross threading. Don't start with a wrench, especially not a power wrench, because you'll strip the whole thing out before you even realize it. Done that more than once. I am not really embarrassed to say because, well, that's just reality, right? We all do it. You learn it and then you don't do it anymore. Okay, now let's see if we can pivot this up a little bit, back a little bit. There we go. Get in there. Easy peasy. Actually, I'm actually a little shocked how easy that was. That's not my normal luck, I promise. So this is one of the reasons why I always keep the book around. Going back to swingarm installation, make sure you put a washer on the bolt head side, a washer on the nut side, and then torque it to 85 foot-pounds, 115 Newton meters. So you also notice it says swingarm nut on the left-hand side. That makes it really easy to determine what you need to do and how you need to torque it. This is for the belt guard, the part that I removed. And those torque to 85 inch-pounds. Huge difference between foot-pounds and inch-pounds, right? 85 inch-pounds is barely wrist tight. Like your wrist can go way tighter than 85 inch-pounds. So you need to be very careful with those, otherwise you'll strip them out. See if I can show this real quick. This is a torque wrench. Never use this to loosen things, only to tighten things. I see people on YouTube do it all the time. Bad, bad, bad. Do not use it to loosen things, only tighten things. One side it says Newton meters, one side it says foot pounds. So in our case, we need 85, which is actually more than this torque wrench can go. I happen to have one that actually does go higher, but you need to check that. The other thing you always want to make sure of is that you loosen the nut on the bottom and unscrew it down till you get back down to the lowest setting for the torque wrench, and then tighten that back up a little bit. Never unscrew it all the way. If you drop it, consider it a waste or a loss. You need to go get a new one or get yours recalibrated. So don't drop them and don't leave them up at any sort of torque any longer than you have to. So this is my bigger torque wrench, much longer. This can go up to 150 foot-pounds. I'm not sure if you'll be able to read that or not. And it has a bigger driver on it. Not that that really matters, but this gives you a lot more leverage when you're going to torque things. Sorry, GoPro battery died. We got another one. So that's now tight. Now something I do recommend, you can either take a permanent marker or they call them chalk markers. You basically put a little line here and basically line it up. You could do it in here if you don't want it to be too visible, but just put something there so that after the first 100 miles ride, you could take a look at it and say, hey, has anything moved here? You know, it's not going to, but I always like to do it. So now is a good time before you start torquing up the suspension to go ahead and refeed that belt through there, because I've done that before. Got the bike all back together and then realized I had not put the belt back. So basically gonna just loosen up this one side so I can basically feed the belt through. Go on there like that. And it's gonna come back and go back around the wheel like that. So now I can go ahead and put it back. So these are 65 foot-pounds. Probably should have tightened that up before. Put the torque wrench on it. Let's check this one. Yeah, see, we didn't even touch that one, but it was at 65. So some people like to not torque anything till the very end. Basically go over everything at the last, one of their last inspections. I'm not a fan of that, because what if I forget? That's just me. All right, so that's the swing arm. Took care of those bearings, got them all greased, put them back in. Pretty happy with that. Replaced the seals to keep water and dirt and everything from getting in there. Packed it full of waterproof grease, and now we got it back on the bike, torqued down. Everything should be fine. I'm thinking tomorrow, since I still don't have the radiator hose, might go ahead and do the triple tree bearings, the steering head, and the races there if they need to be done. And maybe do the forks, because I have to change the seals, the oil seal, the dust seal, and we have to change the oil in them anyway. So it's probably never been done. That's something I find a lot of people skip on, is their fork oil. I don't know why. It's really not that hard. It's pretty easy to do. So that should be fun tomorrow. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day. And thanks for watching. Bye.